once we start, you know, these are like, you're bulking it in with the Super Sculpting at this stage. It's like the big strokes on a painting, and you're going in to do the detail later. Don't worry about the detail. Right now, and in general, I would tell you, the form is what matters. The movement, the form, the composition. You know, if your form is messed up and you do the greatest detail that anyone's ever done, your piece sucks. Whether you do the detail like Takea or whatever, it doesn't matter. Me and Jared, you know, sometimes we see the simplest sculptures, but it's just so beautiful. The way it's composed, the structure of it, the balance, the weight.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Balance is real important.
And so, obviously, if you're going to do figurative stuff, you need to study anatomy. You need to understand what the muscles are doing under the skin. And I see a lot of young sculptors where the musculature looks like the person's been skinned. You know what I mean? Like it's been flayed. But you have to be able to do that and then have the illusion of the skin over the top of that. And that's something, you know, my brother is really, really good at. And it's all an illusion, you know, the veins disappearing. Obviously, there aren't really veins running, but they come up, they go down. So it's all a surface thing. And that's a good thing because the inside of ours aren't pretty. I mean, we're not from Hollywood and we don't make armatures that look like Hollywood armatures. Talk about anatomy a little bit. We study muscle magazines, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of, at least for us, there's a lot of measuring, like from the crotch to the sternum is to the sternum to the top of the head. Or, I'm not saying that's right, but things like that.
Yeah. Like the eye thing halfway in between. We read drawing comics the Marvel way.
Yeah, that's a good book.
That has a lot of good rules. Really influenced us. Like all these little rules, and not only rules about proportion, but about action. You know, if there's a punch, they would say back then, DC would draw a punch right here. Marvel would either draw it here or here. You know, that's a lesson in action. That's what you want to be doing. So on the anatomy, we cut up tons of muscle. Like let's say this guy was going to be a barbarian. We cut up tons of muscle magazine pictures and have them on a cardboard piece in front of us, literally in your eyesight, like beyond the piece. You know, so you're not looking over here and then coming back to it and looking. We have it right behind us. And if we have his arm doing something funky, let's say one arm's doing that, we'll look for that in a picture. And maybe we just cut out this arm of a guy who's doing that and cut out other pictures of legs and whatever. So it's all an amalgamation of what we've found, of reference we've found. Now, are we sculpting right to the reference? No, because I mean, you can see if you look at our stuff, we have a certain style. We're a little loose, but
we're trying to steal as many things from the reference as we can. Every little divot or weird vein or elbow bump, each little thing you take from the picture and then put it on your sculpt, it's going to read truer and truer.
Exactly right. Because, and you know, like a lat under here, a rib cage, it's one thing like this, it's something else when it's like this. If you see a guy who's really ripped, it looks different. And so you can't sculpt a lat like this when a guy's arm is up, you know. You have to see the way these muscles change in different positions. So once we get the form down, what we use, this is the main tool we use for sculpting. It's really, it's a burnisher. And some people use it for printmaking.
Leatherwork.
And leatherwork.
Yeah. TexasArt.com.
Yeah.
Or digblick.com.
Yeah. It has a weight to it. It has one spoon pointed in and one pointed in. And
what was that second website?
Dick Blick.
Yeah.
B-L-I-C-K.
So a lot of guys have like 100 tools, and they're just picking them up and using all these different tools. And sometimes we'll use a different tool. We'll use a loop tool to put, or we'll use a ball tool. But man, 90% of what we do is really with this.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jared's laying it on with his hands now, but once he would start putting the muscles in, it's with this tool, you know.
I was wondering when you're applying the clay here, are you thinking about how the muscles are like how they would interact in a person, or are you just trying to get the general shape?
Just trying to get the general shape at this point, and I'll start finding certain points like the bottom of the chest right there. And then one good thing to do is just to draw a line right down the middle. And that'll probably go away later, but for right now it helps. And to find the collarbone, and then the bottom of the stomach, you know, the belly button is a good point. And so as these things start coming in, if we like it, we'll keep it, you know, and if it looks too high or too low, we'll settle it out, maybe completely resculpt it again. And some things you have to leave small so that other things look big. Like if you leave the wrists or elbows real small, that'll make the biceps and shoulders look bigger
Right.
in proportion to one another.
When you're doing exactly, we do a lot of muscle guys, obviously, a lot of superheroes. If you get the bicep on and everything, and then you make the wrist big, then all of a sudden he's not big anymore. But so, what we're doing, obviously, the process is additive. We're starting with wire, and we're building up, out. Now, a lot of people who are good, Jordan Shell, Casey Love, who are in the show,
It's
are
more subtractive. They're
It's
putting
more-
on a piece and taking away.
rakers. Yeah, they're like rakers. So they have a loop tool. They're putting on more clay than they need, and they're pulling away the negative space. Guys who are badass do that. It's not what we do. We're like, well, sometimes we think of it as like a sand castle where you're dripping. It's just slowly building up and building up. And these pieces here are big that Jared's laying on. But let's say he was fleshed out and Jared was working on them. People are always shocked at how small the pieces are we're putting on for a cheek, you know. Or, I mean, when you're getting toward the end, we're working, I mean, especially in the facial area, because every little touch with a tool can completely change a face.
It's little pieces that seem like they couldn't possibly matter, but after you put them on layer after layer,
Right.
they do start to build up, you know.
Yeah, like 100 of them. Now, our process we take like maybe 200 hours on a piece.
Or more.
Yeah,
Or more.
on some of them more. And I know when you look at our stuff, a lot of people are like, no way, because it's loose and it's rough. But we are slow, but that's how we do it.
Our original designs we can work on for years. We don't have
Exactly.
any, you know, it's just the way it is, because they're kind of labors of love. The professional stuff we've agreed to, we try to finish them as quickly as
Not much sooner sometimes, but, so, yeah, the licensed stuff, you know, obviously, if you've seen our stuff, the licensed stuff in general, let's say Hulk statues for Marvel or Batman for DC, they're gonna be very clean, precise, finished pieces. That's not really our style. There are guys who do that way better than us. You know, we get it to a certain point that's very gestural, and we're like, that's pretty good. I mean, that's how we like to see it. It's more of a rough Rodin type of thing. Some people like that, some people don't. On our original stuff, you know, obviously people love that, especially artists we find, you know, love with rougher and a little more
We like
raw.
it to feel like the sculptor, or what we like to see on a sculpt is like, to almost feel like the sculptor has just walked away from the piece, you know, he
Right.
just set down the thing and it's like it's still kind of raw. And
Some of these statues they're producing just look like they're worked to within an inch of their life. Did a computer make it? Did it literally come out of a machine? I don't know, you know. And some guys, like I say, some guys are geniuses at not what we do, but we found a niche so we can do that Marvel stuff and people take it for what it is, which is looser than the average, you know, industry sculptor. And then we go nuts on our original stuff and do it how we want, you know. I would say it's invariably Wolverine. Every sculpture he starts is Wolverine. This is why we were like doing gallery shows like in LA and Europe, And like, I know these gallery owners in Europe don't want to hear that the piece they have started out as Wolverine. It was in Wolverine for like 3 days. And then